Hello, my name's Kirsty. I'm a pyrography artist, and until recently I had a successful shop on the Etsy platform. I had over 12,000 sales. I had so many 5-star reviews, and all of a sudden they decided to shut my shop. I received an email in early December stating that my shop was suspended and in January it would be permanently shut, and that I could put an appeal in to try and save my shop, basically. So I was really confused. I'd had so many happy customers and it was just really difficult. So I did put an appeal in and asked them to reconsider, having looked at my history over 10 years with them, to try and just get my shop back opened. I had already invested in stock for Christmas being the busiest time of the year for my business. So I had a ton load of boxes literally waiting for me to fulfill orders, and the problem is, because the way that I run my business, because a lot of the orders or a lot of the customers want personalized items, I generally don't load up with stock to burn on, because you end up invariably having more stock than you can store, and also it's just really unwise. So basically what I do is I burn or make customers' orders to order. So I do sell some stock items, but mostly it's I'll take an order, I'll either have the box in stock or I'll order the box and then I'll burn it, and then I will send it out. So it's kind of like you get the money up front to invest into the stock, and it's kind of like you're just doing that the whole time. It's not like I've got a warehouse full of boxes and anyway, I'm going off track. So I had all these boxes, and then suddenly my orders from Etsy stopped, and I still had ones to fulfill. But what happened was I stopped getting an income, basically. So I appealed with Etsy, as I said before, and I asked them to please reopen my shop. And it came back and said, no, you don't fulfill our customer satisfaction requirements. Now, the reason for this is because Etsy have a system where you can connect with your customers through their conversation, which is really, really good. So each customer can get in touch with you through the conversation button on your shop, basically. And then you respond to them. That's how it works. But recently Etsy have introduced a star seller situation, which is pretty impossible to attain unless you are a drop shipper, I think that's what they call them, or you already have stock, so if you have ready prepared stock and you're not sort of making to order and you're not personalizing things, Or if you're a digital artist and everything is like instant download, then I think you can achieve star seller. I think in my history, I think I've been a star seller maybe once or twice, but on the whole I haven't, and I think it's a little bit of an unfair thing, the star seller system. Anyway, along with that, then just like eBay and Amazon, the customer can get in touch with Etsy for help with their order. Okay, so I guess people who are used to using eBay and Amazon may sort of use that as a first port of call. Now Etsy have a thing where they say that the customer has to contact the seller first, okay, and that kind of sometimes works and sometimes it doesn't seem to. In my case, I had what they call cases, which is when Etsy, when the customer has approached Etsy rather than the seller. I had 3 cases. One of them was justified. Another was a customer who had asked Etsy for help after their item had arrived. They just didn't realise it had arrived, and Etsy just immediately refunded them. So on that occasion I got in touch with Etsy and I asked them to please look at the tracking, which had been provided, by the way, and to see that the item had been delivered. There was no fault with the item. There was no, it wasn't broken or anything. It was just like the customer hadn't realised it had been delivered. I mean, maybe somebody else had taken it in, and then they decided to get in touch with Etsy. So that was one. So there was one justified where the item arrived broken, but even so, then the customer could have come to me and I would have, either given them a refund or sent them another item. And then the last one at that time was someone who was just wanting to know when their item was going to be shipped. And you have like a shipping window with Etsy, and you hope to fulfill the orders within that shipping window. And this particular item, this particular customer's item, it wasn't at the end of that shipping window. So what they should have done is got in touch with me and said, hey, where's my item? Well, they did do that, and I said it's going to ship, in the next couple of days. And then somehow they made a case with Etsy, and Etsy just literally refunded them like that. And it was like, this is not right. Why did they do that? So then, because they shut my shop, they put it on holiday motion or pause, but actually they'd suspended it and they said they were going to shut the shop in January. But to people looking in, customers, it looked like my shop was on holiday. So it just escalated. And because I got into a position where I couldn't send things out because I'd invested my money into stock, things that I can burn on. And I found myself in a situation where I had to make choices that I didn't want to make. So I shipped out most, if not all, of the items that were going to the UK, because the postage was, it was a smaller amount than anything that was going overseas. It's definitely not a position I ever wanted to be in with my customers. I felt really like I was letting people down. And then I kind of ran out of money, and so Etsy basically were refunding people that I had no money, and so I was just kind of like thinking, well, what can I do? I've got no orders coming in. It's my busiest time of year. I've invested my money into the boxes that I had orders for, but also boxes that I'd expected orders to come through in sort of December to January time, or sort of mid-November to January time. So it just was not good. It's not good. Etsy used to be a really good platform for artists. So it's like a platform for people who actually made things. It was supposed to be like handmade items, or like in my case, where I burn designs onto items that have been already made, or sometimes I might make things myself. But my skill as a pyrography artist, it used to be really good for that. I started with Etsy in 2009, because I used to knit knitted animals, and I sold those on a bit at Etsy, but it was like, it was more of a hobby, and it was more of a way of kind of like justifying buying wool and knitting things. If I sold something, I could buy some wool and I could carry on with my hobby. The pyrography business I started selling on Etsy in 2014, and it really picked up in 2016. And it was good. But then Etsy started changing. I think the first change that they made was the way that they charged fees. So they used to charge fees on items that you sold, which is fair enough. But then they started to charge fees on your shipping, which is insane. But I know why they did it. They did it because some people were escalating their shipping costs so that they wouldn't have to pay so many fees for the item, which, is just silly. What I was doing at the time is I was charging for the item, and I was charging the shipping, the actual shipping cost to the customer. I wasn't adding anything on. So basically, that was the first thing that they did. So it meant that you either had to put your shipping costs up to allow for Etsy's share of that, or you would have to put the cost of your item up to, either way you'd have to put the cost up. The thing is, it's kind of like I think in business you know what customers will pay for something, and so I personally decided just to take the hit, and sort of keep my business going, and just to sort of take the hit for Etsy basically. So that's what I did, and then they started to encourage people to ship for free, which I agreed to do in the UK, but I mean, you can't ship for free internationally, and you can't really even ship for free in the UK. But it kind of like with Etsy, you always have like, well, recently it's always like, what's the expression for carrot? Putting the carrot in front of the horse. Well, they don't do that. It's kind of like they would rather sort of whip the artist than give you a carrot. So the next thing that they did was this free shipping thing, and basically anyone who provided free shipping was given higher status in the ranking on a search engine, on their search engine. So that was the next thing they did, and I know that a lot of people, it hit a lot of people because like it's just, but also there's an element of dishonesty there, because inevitably what you have to then do is start to incorporate the shipping cost into your item. So basically the customer's getting free delivery, but they're not really, because you then sort of like, you have no choice, but you have to absorb that cost into your, otherwise you're not making any profit. I mean, I think I made a bit of a mistake, because what I did is I think that if I increase my prices at this point, that people, they will maybe lose interest. Because the other thing is I had my competition, apart from other pyrography artists, were laser engrave artists, whereby they use a laser machine to engrave a box or whatever, and it's a sort of easier and cheaper method of doing it. So I was sort of competing with a lot of people that were using laser machines. I've got nothing against laser machines. I've got one now, actually, because I realised that in order to compete, or in order to keep my shop going, I would have to adapt. And the laser machine kind of like is like a bit of a side part of my shop, which allows me to carry on with the pyrography, which is the thing that I like doing. Anyway, I feel like I'm really going off track. So all these things made it harder and harder. Then we had like the pandemic, and then we had like the war in Ukraine with Russia, and then we had, all the cost of living and everything. It just got harder and harder to sell on Etsy. It became harsher and harsher to sell on Etsy as well. They changed, and that's it. There's an online store, online platform in the UK called Folksy, and they are pretty much like how Etsy used to be. They're literally for people that make things. They're not for drop shippers. It's not for I'm not sure if it's but you don't get like the huge kind of like mass-produced things from China that you get on Etsy. I mean, Etsy is becoming more like eBay, Amazon, and Temu. I think that's how you say it. It's like it's just not there for artists anymore. They make you drive your prices down. I mean, I literally made, I was getting a decent amount of orders through in the last year or so, but I was making no money because my profit margins were so low. I was literally just not making. I was making a living, which is okay, it's fine, but I was working so many hours to be able to achieve that level of finance, of income. It's just, and also they have no loyalty. I mean, I'm not going to sit here and like really kind of be completely negative about Etsy, even though I feel like I have every right to. I mean, you know, they provide really good traffic. You know, they do all the SEO and all that for you, which is well, no, they don't actually. There's my other point. I joined Etsy when Etsy wasn't really that successful, and I feel like people like me that have joined Etsy a long time ago and used my content, their content, my keywords, my tags, my SEO basically, to help Etsy grow organically, which I feel is what it did. So if you think about it, it had all these people like me who were just chucking content at it and you know, researching how to do SEO and learning about all that and doing it properly, and basically just increasing Etsy's chance of becoming bigger and bigger. So I kind of feel like, you know, I kind of helped Etsy grow. Maybe that sounds a little bit arrogant. I'm not saying like, oh, you know, the reason that Etsy became really successful is because of me. I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is lots of people inputting lots of content and you know, doing all the SEO and things to generate, and social media, Instagram, Facebook, linking to Etsy, all of that, surely over time, and the mass amount of people that would be doing it would have helped Etsy grow. And then in the end, you know, it's kind of like I felt like really a bit betrayed, because I felt like it actually felt like I was having to get a divorce from Etsy. And the reason I say that is because every single bit of my social media was tied up with Etsy. So I had Instagram linked to Etsy, Facebook linked to Etsy, TikTok linked to Etsy, Pinterest linked to Etsy. Now Pinterest is like really quite a hard one, and I'll tell you why in a minute. But so immediately what I did is I set up a folksy shop, I set up my shop in Folksy, so that actually I could change the links from, because I don't want Etsy now to get benefit from my Instagram or my Facebook or my TikTok or my Pinterest. So I had to go in and change all the links around, because otherwise what would happen, and I tried it out, is that if a customer, or if a potential customer found something they liked on Instagram and they went to the link on Etsy, it would come up saying this item is no longer available, or something like this shop is on holiday, and then it would say here's an alternative. So it's kind of like, no, you're not going to have that from me. So I went in, I changed all the links as much as I could. I still have a lot to do with Pinterest, because the pain about Pinterest is that on Etsy, when you make a listing, you can pin it, okay? And it's like, you just pin it. It's really easy. You make a board, put it on that board, and then anyone that sees it on Pinterest, they click the item and it goes straight to Etsy. I have so many items on Pinterest. It's not just the case of changing a link in a bio or whatever. It's a bit more complex than that. So I'm still in the process of I think basically the best way forward, but the brutal, you know, the hardest way forward, but the best way forward is for me just to go in and delete everything on Pinterest that I've put on. because it's just so much to do. So I'll probably have to do that, which is a real shame, because like, you know, some of my items on Pinterest have had quite a few views, but again, they link to Etsy, and then it pops a message, no longer available, sellers on holiday, here's an alternative. So it's kind of like Etsy is still feeding off of my social media to get sales. Incidentally, it kind of like, I've looked at some of the alternatives that come up, and so like for a beautifully hand burned box that I've made, up comes like a engraved box. There's nothing wrong with engraved boxes. I do them myself now, but it comes up and it's kind of like really basic. It's not finished, it's not painted, it's not, you know, it's nothing compared to the thing. So, you know, yeah, fine, Etsy, have that one, but like, you know, I just feel like I'm having to divorce myself from Etsy, and meanwhile this balance in my payment account, this negative balance in my payment account at Etsy, is getting higher and higher because I couldn't fulfill people's orders in the end, and of course they want their money back. I don't blame them, but yeah. So yeah, that's what I did. I set up a shop on Folksy. I disengaged Etsy from my social media, or I'm still in the process of doing that. I mean, they permanently shut my shop in, I think it's on January the 2nd. I think if you try and find the shop on Etsy now, you just won't find it. I can still see, you know, people who are making cases now, and I've like, when they shut my shop, I think, well, when they first suspended my shop, I think I had like 3 cases, and then because they suspended my shop, and because I couldn't fulfill all of the orders, then I started to get more cases. I can't even look at it now to see how many cases I've got. It's just like incredible. I know that if they hadn't have shut my shop, then basically, you know, I wouldn't have, I can't say that actually, because like I said, customers start reacting to Etsy like it's eBay or Amazon and raise cases, and sometimes it just seems like you get no notification about these cases until Etsy have resolved them, and they resolve them usually by just refunding the customer, even when it's like the lady that said that her box didn't come and it was there, you know, it's unjustified. And the guy that raised the case with Etsy about just sort of inquiring where his box was, he was really angry. He left me a really bad review saying all he wanted to know is where his box was, and that like I had just immediately refunded him with no explanation. It's like, it wasn't me. I didn't do that. Etsy did it. So anyway, it's just like, you probably think, why aren't I crying? And it's like, well, actually, do you know what? I'm on antidepressants. I've been on antidepressants for a couple of years now. So it actually, it's just as well I'm on antidepressants. That's all I'm going to say, because if I wasn't, I don't know. I don't know what I would do. Because the other thing is, I thought, well, it's okay. In the UK, we have like a support system in place. And what I'm going to have to do right now is try and rebuild my business on a different platform. When I have orders coming in, I can open a website, and maybe I'll try and sell on TikTok, maybe I'll try and sell on Instagram, Facebook, whatever. You know, I'll just try to get my poor business back on track. So I thought, in the meantime, I'm going to have to get a part-time job, or a full-time job even, just so that I can actually manage to look after myself and not be a burden on anyone else. So in the UK we have this thing, it's called it's like in the benefit system, and this particular thing's called New Job Seekers. So basically I applied for New Job Seekers allowance, which would give me I think it's like £90 or something a week, just to be able to sort of like continue to feed myself, whatever, while I'm looking for a job. So I applied and I thought, that's okay. I felt pretty confident that I was gonna get this job seekers allowance, and that although by in no means is it going to cover the cost of living, but at least it's something coming in to help. And then I didn't hear anything, so I phoned them up and they said, oh, we reviewed your case and unfortunately you're not eligible for job seekers allowance. And I said, why? I'm 55 years old. I've worked since I was 16. And they said it's because you've been self-employed. I've been self-employed for 20 years now. I've had one job in that time for a couple of years. But on the whole, I've been self-employed. They said because you've been self-employed, you haven't contributed the right kind of national insurance. So basically, to get job seekers allowance, I should have been paying I'm sorry, it's my brain, it's like sometimes it does this. I had a mini stroke a while back and it kind of like sometimes just shuts down. So yeah, national insurance contributions, that's right, I didn't have it in the right category apparently. And I said, well, okay, that's fine, I understand that, I didn't know that, but I understand what you're saying. But how about the years before? I'm 55, I actually was in full-time employment up until the last 20 years, and I paid national insurance contributions then. I've never signed on before. Signed on is like what you say if you're signing on for job seekers allowance. Never done that. And they said, no, we looked at we basically take a year, and the year we looked at was 21 to 22, and you just don't qualify, sorry. And I was like, really, come on? And they said, no, you don't. And I said, but what about all the contributions I've made before? And it's not like I wasn't making contributions when I was self-employed, it's just they weren't the right kind. So, and I didn't know that. And actually, I've never thought that I would ever be in a situation where I would need to sign on. Which is a bit silly really, because like, come on. But anyway, so that was that. So there we are. No money, no business, trying to make my business work, trying to deal with my health. I also have a hole in my heart, which fortunately doesn't give me any problems at the moment, but and it's just really, really sad. So I just wanted to share this with you. I'm sorry it's a bit of a ramble. I just think also I would have advice for anyone that's starting off a creative business and wants to sell online. Don't put all your eggs in one basket. I know it's a really obvious thing, but the thing is, it's like when you get carried along on a tide of like popularity with someone like Etsy, you kind of get into a comfort zone. That comfort zone becomes really uncomfortable when, like, you know, like Etsy changed their the way that they did business, and basically I was sitting uncomfortably in my comfort zone, and I should have just expanded into other places and just relying on Etsy. But Etsy's like a full-time job, and it's kind of like, where do you find the time to be able to do that? So all I would say is, like, at the beginning of your creative career, just spread those seeds out all over the place, not just in one place like I did. So going forward, I've applied for so many jobs, but nobody kind of really, it just seems like I know I have a lot to offer. I've been a pyrography artist, I've run my own business, I've done cleaning, I was a therapeutic foster carer for 10 years. That's the fee paid one, where I don't even want to go there. I've worked in a pharmacy. I've worked for a designer radiator company called Beask, where I was a administrative assistant. I've worked at a garden centre. I know loads about plants and stuff, but I'm 55, so it's kind of like, and I'm 55 and I've been self-employed. I think that's always like a little bit of a kind of turn off for employers, but I'm still applying for jobs, and hopefully something will come up. And I'm still burning. I've had a couple of orders on Etsy. Not Etsy. I've had a few orders on Folksy, which is really encouraging, but it's just not enough. And also, the other thing is that I found is, you know, Etsy is still trying to come after me for money, so it's just really hard. I mean, I have a partner, and he's happy to support me as much as he can, but his business isn't doing very well, and also, you know, he's over 60, so it's kind of like I can't. And anyway, I've never in my life, or I've really tried hard in my life to keep my independence financially, and I've always tried not to be a burden to anyone else. You know, it's just the way I am. Lots of reasons for that, but you know, it's just me. I really don't like having to rely on somebody else financially or in any way, really. So there's that as well. So yes, no, I let Etsy know about I had these health conditions, and that I was on antidepressants. I think one of the hardest things, I've had several really hard things over the last few years. I had 2 dogs who suddenly became really ill at different times, and I lost them, and I also lost my mum. I supported her for so long, and she'd been diagnosed with a condition and she was terminally ill. And of course it makes it really hard when you're trying to kind of like deal with all these things and you're trying to run your business as well. You know, sometimes I wasn't on top form, but I really, really tried, and it was just like, it was just a real blow when Etsy just decided not to support me and to shut my shop. It's just kind of like, it's like being sacked on the spot from a job, or dismissed on the spot from a job, and just like having no real kind of like, why? So yeah, so that's my story of Etsy. I don't think I've missed anything out. I'm going to, throughout the video, when I edit it, I will pop in some of my reviews that I've had in the past, and also there's so I managed to take some screenshots before, because now I just can't access this stuff. All I can access is conversations, and through those conversations I can go into orders, but you know, the dashboard on Etsy for me has completely changed. It's like really limited, but fortunately I did screenshot some reviews, and I also screenshot, I think I did anyway, you know, some of the correspondence I had from Etsy, so I'll be including that. So I hope you've learned something from this, and that's all I can say about it right now. I don't think I've missed anything. If I have, then when I play this back and edit it, I'll realise, and I'll either make another video or do something else. But this is actually my studio workshop. I live and work aboard a boat, so I will do more videos about I intend to do some tutorials and things about pyrography and selling on an online platform or whatever. Anyway, for now I'm going to go, because I just my brain has just gone into like fuzz mode, and I don't even know. I'm just waffling onto the camera. So yeah, until next time, bye.